I'm in Tokyo. Mark's in Detroit. He has a story to tell from San Diego, and I'm going to talk about China. All of that coming up right now on MTM Travel. So, Mark, I am at the Hyatt Regency Tokyo Bay. I think I've recorded a couple shows from here before over the years, so it's good to be back.
Yeah, I mean that year you were everywhere, so I don't remember exactly what hotels, but you probably did record some from here. I know you shared some pictures in Slack, the different, how it looked in what 2005 or 2008, and now Shanghai skyline, quite a bit more there. I mean, it still looks somewhat similar, but they just like filled in more of it.
Yeah, I was taken back, kind of looking back at that, and we'll talk China. We're going to catch up on this show. We're not going to do a miles and points. We're going to talk about our travel for a little bit, back to maybe more of the normal stuff next week, and I'll have more to unpack from my trip. Did a lot, but it was interesting to look back at my pictures from 2008, Shanghai's skyline, and yeah, the Pearl Tower was there, and there was the Jinmao building was the tallest building, and now it's been replaced by like two buildings that are even taller, including the Shanghai Financial Center. And then, all those TikToks, everything China is the future. They love to put lights on everything. And Shanghai's skyline, it's the best in the world. I mean, I used to think Hong Kong's was, but it's incredible. And hopefully people will enjoy the videos. But the crazy thing, Mark, we were just out on the water on the Boon looking at all the buildings. And then they just had a random drone show to advertise a business. Like, this is what we're doing here in 2025 in China.
Yeah, that's pretty epic. And, we always see the videos of people sharing drone shows happen quite a bit there. Their drones don't, dive down and crash like ours do, or at least we haven't seen those videos. That's still crazy. The one that happened like a year or whatever ago. So it's just like they take it to the next level, something that we don't really see. And people aren't maybe willing to do it. I don't know, but you would think maybe there's laws that people can't just throw a drone show out there wherever or what. I don't know, but you would think that this would be a great way to advertise, especially in like a place like Vegas. They should have a drone show like every Friday night with something advertising something going on.
Yeah, Vegas can learn a lot from Shanghai and the skyline. It's incredible. And just kind of comparing it, it's always fun going back to a place you've been many times. I haven't been to Shanghai since 2019. And as I said, my first time was in 2008 and some other visits along the way. So I've kind of seen it. This is the most cosmopolitan city in China. I guess the least traditional city, at least from a tourist perspective. And the Bund is incredible, still all the old European style, but that financial side of the river is just incredible. And it's been good to get to China. I would say there's a lot of surprises being my first time back in mainland China since the pandemic. And it's quite a bit different. I mean, English is spoken so widely in Shanghai now, I didn't even know what to do.
You didn't have to use Google Translate at all or anything, huh?
Well, we did. I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you could find a lot of English speaking compared to in the past. And Google Translate is great too. Everybody knows how to use it too. So if you get into a bind, and one of the biggest kind of, I don't know, drawbacks to going to China as they transition their payment systems and everything to Alipay and WePay a few years ago and away from traditional credit card systems is that it was difficult for Westerners to kind of get into those systems. And I was really interested to see how that worked and what the logistics were of going to China and being able to pay for everything. And I will say that it's much easier now. They figured out how to interface perfectly with the Western banking system. You can set up Alipay and or WePay. I suggest setting up both of them, or WeChat, I guess. The crazy thing is, these are all apps within an app. So you get these apps and then you can call your Didis, which is your Uber. You can do all these different payments. Like we were at amusement parks and they would have skip the line passes. And you would do all of that through Alipay or the WePay app. It creates apps within apps. It's sort of nuts to do. But you can set all your payment ahead of time, use a Western credit card. It's just so much easier than it was before. You just get a QR code, you scan it everywhere you go. It doesn't take much to get it down. And I think going to China, easier than ever for people who are intimidated. And people should go see that skyline themselves.
And aren't the fees way lower for swipe fees? I think I've read before they keep them down quite a bit, which isn't good for us because that's what pays for all our rewards. But it's interesting that they keep it pretty easy, cheap to the vendors, easy for people to use. I like the tap to touch the phone. Everything, is quick and easy. So I would like to see us get into that a bit more. I have noticed more restaurants and stuff are bringing the payment processors to the table versus having to walk away with your card and everything, which we see in other countries. So maybe we get a little bit more of that. Tap to pay is in most places. Yeah, Walmart doesn't have it, which is crazy. And I remember a worker telling me it had something to do with their fight with Amazon, which I don't understand. Maybe tap to pay is an Amazon thing, but that's why they don't have it. And it's like the biggest retailer in the country doesn't have tap to pay. It blows my mind.
Yeah, and then you don't really tap most of the time here. You're using QR codes. It's weird because in certain, so it says that there's a 3% foreign transaction fee for foreign cards. And then when you signed up for these, or when we signed up ahead of time, it said it would waive that for certain transactions. And it waived it for almost all of them. Randomly, a couple small transactions, it charged it. So it wasn't enough money to really care very much about it. And kind of the history of this, like 2008, first time I was there, cash for everything. Credit cards, you could do at hotels and major places, Western places, stuff like that. 2017, I remember a big change when we tried to use credit cards anywhere, even at like amusement parks, stuff like that. They wouldn't be accepted anymore. So we ended up having to use cash everywhere because Alipay and WePay didn't really work with Western accounts at that time. And then I didn't take 1 cent. I had a little bit of extra cash left over and I did spend it in China. I didn't take a dollar out and I didn't need to spend cash on anything. That's how easy it was. So I didn't even need to go to an ATM. And if I didn't have the little cash I had, I wouldn't have needed it. And I think that's pretty incredible for going there. Very easy. Calling the DDs, there's less language barrier. The app will automatically translate. So if you type in there, the driver will get it in Chinese and vice versa. And we called DDs all over the place and they're pretty cheap. And, that's another thing about traveling to China compared to, we also did Seoul and I'm in Tokyo now. And I'll talk about, some of that on future shows, but it's much cheaper than going to these other Asian countries. And like the hotels, like the Hyatt Centric that I stayed at this time in Shanghai, category 2, and it's beautiful. It reminds me exactly of the Hyatt Centric in Ginza in Tokyo, which is a category 6. So there you go. That's sort of the difference in cost. And so your money goes a lot further there.
How many times have you been asked to go have tea and work on English?
It didn't happen this time. The last time my buddy Dave and I were here on the Boond, we got approached by quite a few ladies, let's just put it that way. And this time, no, it was a lot of people there. It was a crush of people. This time we were on the Boond and just busy, and that's just the way it is. But we did Disneyland, which was great to go back to Shanghai Disneyland and get to experience that park again. I hadn't been there since 2019 again, and still holds up. People, if you love Disney, you should absolutely plan on going to that park. It's incredible. And I wasn't sure, like, after all these years, would I still love it as much as I used to? And we're not going to talk a bunch of Disney here, but it does still hold up.
Did they add anything new, like new areas or a new ride since the last time?
Yes, Mark, they added the Zootopia area since the last time I was there. I just got done answering that they didn't add anything new. No, actually, it's incredible.
Nothing that I care about.
No, actually, I do. So they recreated Zootopia, and it has a really good ride. There's one ride in the area. It's kind of similar to Rise of the Resistance, the same kind of technology, but you're going through Zootopia in the story, and your whole thing is to get the gazelle to her concert. And it's sort of a similar thing to Rock and Roller Coaster, the storyline. And the gazelle is obviously Shakira, and the finale of it is her singing that song, Try Everything. It's a great ride. It's a good Disney ride, but they recreated Zootopia itself as the land, and there's all kinds of animatronics through the land. The land comes alive at night. It's incredible. I hope they build this in the United States because it's very unique, and Zootopia as a franchise is huge in China, and so it's kind of unique to that park. They're also building a Spider-Man coaster, and then just got to ride some of the old favorites like the original Tron. I know we have it in Florida now, but it's better in China. No, it's the same, but it's fun.
I mean, they're all just fighting for second place behind Universal these days anyway, so.
Yeah, and then, they built a brand new Legoland in Shanghai. They're building these Legolands like crazy. 3 of them are under construction, and it was a last-minute choice, but we went there. And this is like the nicest Legoland in the world. Now, I've only been to 3 Legolands, which is probably 3 more than many of you guys want to go
more?
to.
I was going to say, is there more than 3?
Well, so how many do you think? So there's Shanghai just opened. There's 2 more under construction in China. So counting those, how many Legolands in the world do you think there are?
6.
14.
Oh, wow.
These are full theme parks, not just the Discovery Centers. These are full theme parks. But yeah, it was incredible. The Shanghai Legoland, you know how they all have the mini city? Well, in that park, they built it inside this giant building, and it's like the biggest version of that I've ever seen. And then they have this really cool coaster that's like the centerpiece of the park with this giant, probably like 40-foot tall Lego guy. And yeah, it was just a cool park. And we only got a little bit of time to spend there, but Yeah, good times. I'm exhausted, as people could probably hear. It's been wall-to-wall travel the last 10 days, and I'm going to Disney and Tokyo the next couple days, so I don't know. Hopefully I'll live to tell the tale.
How much are the park tickets over there for Disney and then for Legoland?
Yeah, I want to talk about that because it's just insanely cheap. So I recommend using Klook for any sort of attractions in Asia. I've used it for a long time. Top Cash Back has been running 14% cash back on it as well. So instead of using the app, you might want to use a portal if you're doing that. And then they also have their own rewards program. Most of these parks, $30 or so to get in, most of the theme parks. And then
Well, it
Shanghai
should be.
Disneyland was about $60. So Disneyland about $60, Legoland about 30, and then some of the other regional amusement parks we went to 30. We even rode one of the Chinese knockoffs of the tilt coaster like they have at Cedar Point, the one that's been going around the internet where you do that. Got 2 front row rides on that from a company called Jinma. It used to be called Golden Horse, and they're famous for knocking off designs of Western coaster manufacturers. And I was happy to get that. That was very scary, Mark. It took like 30 seconds for the thing to lock into place as it's tilting. I only got video from far away because there were so few people in this park that we could never find other people who were riding when we were not so that I could film it. And then we were across the park one time and somebody else rode it. There was probably 10 people in this whole park, but it's a fun ride. I mean, it's scary.
Yeah, so when you're going to these countries and you don't know exactly how well they have maintenance or all this stuff, we see all the weird things breaking and people falling and crazy stuff that happens in other countries where I mean, yes, it can happen in the US too, and it does, but it just seems like we know what we normally have, what kind of checks and balances they have. And when you have like a knockoff that didn't really create this or test it or anything like that to the level that the Cedar Point, whoever built that one, did. Do you have any extra fear when you get on something like that?
So it's kind of a joke in the coaster community that this company Jinma makes knockoffs. But the truth is, they started as Golden Horse. I rode a ton of their coasters from '08. I've ridden many of their coasters, and they were known as very low quality back in the day. And I probably rode some coasters back then that I shouldn't have. But in modern times, the theme park industry is in a boom here. And actually, it's all, unlike in the US, where every state has different regulations and lacks safety standards in certain states and everything, it's all governed, I believe, by the central government here. And when they build a coaster, it actually has a lifetime. So the manufacturer will say the track is good for 20 years. And then after 20 years, they have to either rebuild the entire coaster or get rid of it. The trains will have a life. And so actually, in the last 15 years, there's a giant boom in this industry. And it does seem like, I mean, I don't know, I'm not an expert on the inside, but it does seem like the industry here is safer than ever. Obviously, things can happen. There was a big high profile case of something happening at Epic Universe on one of the coasters there. So, I don't feel bad about it. And Jinma has actually gone from like making knockoffs, and they still do that, but they make more coasters than just about any other manufacturer in the world. And I think their quality has gotten better. Their coasters used to be like, it was rough. I can't even describe what their coasters were. It was like you took a picture of a coaster from the West and then they would try to reverse engineer it, and it was terrible. And they've gone from that in like the last 20 years to actually creating really good designs. And the one we rode here, I was shockingly good. So I feel like, yeah, but I won't lie. Like for a second before that thing locked in, you're like, there's a lot of trust going on here before that track actually, yeah, it was bad. I freaked out for a second. I'm not going to lie.
I wonder if they had as many issues as Cedar Point has had with it, like failing and having to get people off and have them walk down the track. Like if they've had as many breakdowns or stoppages like we've seen there.
What's funny is that in 2017, my buddy Dave and I were at a different park in China that had the first version of this Jinma tilt coaster ripoff, and they had dueling ones, which was really cool. So they would like duel and like tilt into each other. And we got to the park and they were testing them, but they said they weren't going to open them for the day. So we never got to ride them. And then the one like in Cedar Point, that's from a company called Vekoma. They're the same company that builds a lot of the Disney coasters and stuff. And that's the original version. And we always felt like we should ride the Chinese version first because we missed that one. So it felt right to do the Chinese version before the Western version. I don't know, on the day we were there, it worked perfectly. And we were in like a new park that's, a few years old. And these parks are crazy. Like this park just randomly had a dark ride that was like Harry Potter with the Kuka arm, the big arm ride. And, you never know what you're going to find in these parks.
I hate that ride.
People are traveling around. But you don't expect it to find it in a random Chinese amusement park, but they have all kinds of cool stuff. And Yeah, it's an interesting industry. And then we went back to a park that I had gone to several years ago. And the one thing about a lot of these parks is they don't hold up very well. And that one just was, in Happy Valley, Shanghai, was just very sad to go to. So it's a good, it's a mixture of things. But I will say the Disney like culture has caught on in Shanghai with Disneyland, and then Halloween everywhere, Christmas decorations going up in all these parks, not just at Disneyland. At every park we went to, they're having haunts, they're having Halloween events, they're having Christmas events. I don't know where all this influence is coming from, but I'm gonna give Disney credit.
I wonder if they do KFC there too on Christmas.
KFC is huge. They have more locations than anybody. KFC, people don't know, is the first Western fast food company in China, and they had a several-year head start on McDonald's. And even when I was here in '08, they had many more locations than McDonald's, and still to this day, I think they have more in China. But you can find everything in China, from like Popeye's chicken to Baskin Robbins to, I mean, just every brand you can think of is there.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy when you think about it, because you always hear, they don't want Western stuff in there, and then you go there, oh, I can get Popeyes here, I can get all this stuff, and then of course we always talk about going into McDonald's wherever you are and just seeing what unique things they have, what's different in there. It's kind of fun when traveling to do that at least once. Now, one last question about parks. Did you go to any of the like super shady ones where you can feed alligators and stuff? I don't remember where those are, but
No, I haven't seen one of those since Vietnam way back when. I wish. Yeah, that was nuts. I'll throw up a picture of this park in Vietnam from like '07, and you could feed the alligators. You could buy a stick that had meat on it, and you could feed them over the bridge. But they had these boats, and they were closed at the time, but they had a picture, and I hope I can find this picture of what the boat looked like with people, and it had like a cage on it, and you could get in this boat,
yeah.
and it would go out on the water and then feed them. And this is I didn't, like I said, I think it was condemned, and they weren't using the boats anymore by the time I was there. But can you imagine going out like in this cage, and then you're feeding, and then the force that they grab that meat with, because I did feed one from the sidelines, is insane. I couldn't imagine being on the boat. That's like the scariest thing I've ever seen.
Boat looked super rickety too. Like if it just tips over, you're all dying.
One thing that Chinese theme
looked
parks,
like the worst idea.
one thing Chinese theme parks have is like ice houses, which is really neat. So we did one of those where they usually have slides. This one had like a carousel that we did. So you go, you pay. It's usually an upcharge over the regular ticket. They give you a jacket and all that stuff, and then you can go in the ice house. And when it's hot outside, it's always a great time, and one of my favorite things to do. So that's something that's unique. And yeah, I think people should come to China. They should go to China so that they can make up their own mind about what is going on and all the cool things. Is China living in the future? In some ways, very much so compared to the U.S.
Did you go to one of those warehouses and get the purses for like $50 when they're doing all those TikToks?
I did not maximize business opportunities, unfortunately. Spent too much time at theme parks. So speaking of Western brands, crazy. The last few times I've been to Shanghai Disneyland, in their little downtown Disney area, they have Cheesecake Factory. So that's been like a tradition for me. So I know I can get judged on that, going to Cheesecake Factory. And then, as you said, McDonald's, my friend wanted to try the McCrispy wings, or the McSpicy wings, because they have wings at McDonald's in China. And I think in other countries too, but I had never tried them before either. So we tried those. They were delicious. There you go. Wings at McDonald's.
They should do like one McDonald's wherever the first McDonald's was. They should make it like the all-star McDonald's, where they just take the best thing from every menu in the world and put it there, so you can just go there and try all the different things.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's one of the coolest things about traveling and seeing that, and we've done it over the years. And I think with kids, it's also nice to give a break. And I've never been afraid. Like, don't let people shame you. If you want to try a wing at McDonald's in China, do that. If you want to eat at the Cheesecake Factory at Shanghai Disneyland, do that. It just became an accidental thing that my buddy and I did, and now I did it with Jasmine when I went back, and Ellie, and now I did it again. And next time I come to Shanghai Disneyland, I'll go to Cheesecake Factory again. So it doesn't really matter. We got stuck out at Legoland, and there was nothing else to eat, so we ended up eating at Chili's there too, and that's sort of embarrassing. That kind of takes it too far. So now we're at like Cheesecake Factory, McDonald's, and Chili's, but we had amazing soup dumplings too. I don't know.
Yeah,
I can't believe I actually admitted that. I can't believe I admitted that.
Did you get the triple dipper at least? Then it's okay if you're at Chili's and you get the triple dipper.
No, I just got like a chicken sandwich, but it was good. It tasted like home.
There you go. Yeah, I think, especially if you're on a longer trip, it's always nice to break it up and You want to eat local, you want to try whatever their special, dish is in the area and all of that. But you also, once in a while, especially my stomach, I have issues with my stomach, period. But when you're eating a whole bunch of stuff it's not used to, it starts you just feel kind of crappy like by day 3 or 4. And I'm like, all right, today I'm going to get something that's just normal that I normally would eat. And that could be from a US company that's there, or just from another place that's, a local place trying to be like a US restaurant. But I'm going to go get that so that it just kind of normalizes everything. And then, like you said, with kids, sometimes they're like, I'm tired of trying ramen or whatever, or tacos or wherever you're at. And they're like, I just want chicken nuggets. And you're like, here you go, eat the chicken nuggets and be done with it.
Yeah, there's no right or wrong answer to that. And I just want to talk before we go to your story, and I'll have more on the trip. I went to Korea. There's a lot to talk about from South Korea. The Lottie Tower, did a lot there. So I want to go over that and my few takeaways here from my time in Japan. But Hyatt Centric, Zongshan Park, I have stayed on at the Grand Hyatt and the Park Hyatt in Shanghai previously, and those are actually in the financial center, that pretty area with all the lights across the river. That's where that was. Not the best area for tourists, but it's kind of a remarkable area to stay in. And the Grand Hyatt, I think, is like goes up to the 90th floor, and the Park Hyatt's even higher. In the other tower, it's in like the second tallest tower on that skyline. So both of those are incredible because where you stay, it's so rare to have a hotel room that's that high and to look over a city. But this Zongshan Park, I wanted to try this as a different area of the city, and I really liked it. It's more like being away from the tourists, being in the middle of the regular city, but it's very convenient. The park was beautiful. The room they gave us had this like incredible view of the park, and there's like twin towers near there. Light show, the whole skyline is a light show, not even like the Boon. I mean, just from our room. And like I said, the Centric was great. Category 2. The hotel, the breakfast in China, always great. Huge buffets with Western and Chinese food. And so you can't really go wrong where you stay. But I just wanted to give a recommendation for the Hyatt Centric Songshan Park. I think that you wouldn't go wrong if you stayed. There's so many Hyatts in Shanghai. I'm not going to go over all of them, but this is one that probably people, might be more apprehensive because they want to be more in the tourist area. But those tourist areas are so busy and full of people, and you can take the, Didi for a few bucks or the subway and be in Zongshan Park and have a little bit more of a local experience. Restaurants open all night, but it's all local people, and I like that a lot more.
No, that sounds great, and I like getting away from the hustle and bustle of things a bit, and feeling like you can settle in a little bit more versus just being bombarded when you go outside and everybody's everywhere and it's just overwhelming. So it's nice to have kind of like that spot to go to. I think you said it's Cat 2, so it's really good value there on points and maybe even cash sometimes. But yeah, and then the buffets over in Asia are insane and over the top. I know our buddy Rob doesn't like the one in Thailand because the bacon isn't bacon. So that's the one downside.
Well, bacon's one of those things that depending on where you are in the world, it's different and it's interesting. Because I grew up in the U.S. We never left. You just had bacon, and that's what it was. And then you learn that the British have a different kind of bacon, and then you go to other countries, and yeah, they cut it differently, and it tastes a little different. And I like to embrace all the different kinds of bacon, but yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it, probably the crispy American bacon is probably my favorite.
Yeah, I think that it's the best in the world.
America, yeah.
America,
But
hell yeah.
but you have speaking of that, you went to San Diego and you went back to the Top Gun bar, and yeah, what happened?
Yeah, so before I even went there, it just was like chaos. So the Delta flight, I had booked a Delta flight on Virgin, and then I had upgraded my seat using Delta Sky Miles. So I booked it cheaper using Virgin Miles than versus just booking with Delta, and then for 10,000, 15,000, whatever it was, Sky Miles upgraded. So I was like, okay, cool. And I go to check in, fairly early. And luckily I did this fairly early. Sometimes I forget to check in until like, the evening of, or maybe the morning of. And this was almost like 24 hours out and it wouldn't let me check in. It said error. So I'm like, okay, let me try on the website. That wouldn't work. App didn't work. I called Delta and they're like, oh, Virgin has suspended your ticket. So that's why you can't check in. And we can't do anything about it. And I'm like, but I paid an upgrade with Sky Miles, so why is it suspended? Why would that go through? And they're like, yeah, that's because it was with Sky Miles. I'm like, but if it was suspended, how could I have added to? Like, this must have just happened. I didn't get an email or anything. So I reach out to Virgin, and this is now, like 1 p.m., 2 p.m. our time. So it's in the evening in London where, I'm reaching out to them and they're like, "Oh, well, yeah, I see it's suspended, but I don't know why." And that group, I mean, it's like I think at that time it was like 7:30 there, 7:30 p.m. She's like, "It's 7:30 p.m. here, so you know, there's not that many people working, so I don't know. You'll have to call back at 8 a.m. our time, which is like 3 a.m. my time." I'm like, "But my flight is at 8 a.m. So I have to get up at 3 a.m., call you, and then get back up, try to fall back asleep and hope that it all works out. No, that doesn't work for me." So I'm dealing with that. They're like, well, maybe we'll call you back. So I leave it alone for a few hours, and by like 8 o'clock at night, I'm just gonna rebook this something else. So I find American first class on American going through Chicago, 31,000 miles. I'm like, all right, done, booked it. Call Delta and say, hey, since this was suspended, if I cancel this, can I get my Sky Miles back? And they're like, yeah, we'll put a note in there. And then try to call Virgin, say, hey, I need to cancel because you guys suspended it. And they're like, we can't cancel it because it is suspended. So we have a case going on. So once the case is done, then we can cancel it.
Yeah, this is everybody's fear, right? Like I've always had this fear that one day I'm going to go check in for the flight, and especially like when I'm on like here, right, where you're far away from home. That's always been my fear. And I mean, luckily you have the skills to do it in the backup. But I just imagine like the average person would just freak out and not really know what to do and be on hold forever, and it would just you have your wits about you. But yeah, so did you ever find out why they suspended it?
Yeah, so the theory is that there was an update, like a time change, and I went and I don't remember getting an email from this, and if I did, I probably approved it on Delta's site, but never approved it on Virgin. And this happened to Derek at Travel on Points too. He said they suspended one of his flights because he didn't approve it on Virgin's end. So I went into the account, nothing came up on the app, but I went in and online, and this is before while I was like chatting with them, and it said, "Do you approve this?" And the time was exactly the same. So I don't know if just the flight number changed or what, but I approved that. It still didn't unlock it, and they couldn't figure out what was going on at that time. But I woke up at like 5 a.m. and just pulled up my Delta app and went to check in, and I could check in. So I checked in. That was the better flight. It was a nonstop, and it was in first class. So I checked in, canceled my American flight. I did look to see like there was like two other flights I could have booked that were leaving like a half hour after Delta's. That it would have been a bit hectic, but I'm like, at least I have these backups. If I go to the airport and I try to get on the plane, and they're like, wait, no, you tried to cancel this. So that's why I'm feared, because I'm put all that into work where they're doing all these back end checks and everything, trying to cancel it. But I was able to board. Canceled the American flight, got those miles back. Everything worked out as it should be. But like that's super stressful. And the thing that blows my mind is, how does Virgin Atlantic, an airline that works around the world, not have people staffed in these types of areas 24/7? I don't, like, you can't figure out how you suspended a ticket until those people come in. You don't have any of them working overnight. That's just insane to me.
Why do they think they can suspend your ticket just because you don't approve the change? That's insane. Like the ticket should stay there. I mean, that's why should you have to go and approve? People miss emails. They don't check. That's the dumbest policy I've ever heard. So, we're going to change your flight, and if you don't agree with us, we're just going to screw you on the day of departure. I mean, I get the theory is they want you to know when the new time is or whatever.
Yeah.
But the punishment for that is that we're going to take your ticket away. Oh my God, that's terrible.
Yeah, and it was still the Delta person's like, I still show it ticketed. You just can't use it. And I'm like, what the heck? So then, like a week later, I get an email from them both. Well, the case is closed because you went on the flight.
Well, good story. So, how was the Top Gun bar? Would everything go fun there?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It wasn't quite as packed as it was the time before. I mean, the Secretary of the Navy was there last time, so it was still graduation weekend. Our friend Veronica had kind of planned it out. She had kind of figured out when she thought it would be. So we were there. So it was fairly busy, but it wasn't completely packed. Nobody in our group put their phone on. Quite a few people walked in with like hats on and stuff, or set their phone down. So I think we got 5 or 6 free drinks, and then a young guy walked in, and he was a reserve, and he was there for training. He was going to get deployed for 7 months, like the next day. He walked in with his hat on, and you could just tell on his face he was so like sad about it and stuff. I'm like, hey, are you here with with your dad or anybody? He's like, no, he's 21. He's like, no, I'm here. I'm like, oh, is this your first time here? He goes, no, I've been here before. I should have known. So I ended up paying his tab because I felt so bad for him. But I was like, do you have your car here? He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, we need a ride off the base because the person that had driven onto the base and was going to get us off the base had to leave. Her husband was having an emergency thing at a hospital, so he had to leave. So we were kind of stranded there to figure our way off. Which some Uber and some drivers can get on base, so you can still call that. So that was our backup plan. But I was like, if you have a car, like I'm paying your tab, but if you could give us a ride off the base, you could just drop us off in Coronado. It doesn't matter. We just have to get off base. He's like, yeah, no problem. So he ended up hanging out with us the rest of the night. We ended up going to the bowling alley on base with a couple of the people in the military there and bowled for a couple hours. It was like the most random night, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it seems like, I mean, you have a knack for finding that type of random night and doing that. But that's awesome that you paid his tab, and yeah, I can just imagine how much was it? I mean, just in the realm of it, when you have to buy everybody a drink, what does that end up costing?
Yeah, they charge 650 per person and they give them all tokens, and those tokens are good for like a year or two. And then if they go above that, you have to pay the difference, but it covers most of the drinks there. We probably get screwed a little bit because I'm guessing like a beer's less than 650, but some mixed drinks are probably more. So it's kind of like a happy medium. Last time we were there, the bills, it was busy, so the bills were like 350, and it was a little bit less especially by this time, it was like 8 o'clock at night, 7 o'clock at night, and I think my tab was like 175 bucks plus tip. So not out of this realm. And I always wanted to do it on purpose anyway. So this was kind of my roundabout way to do it, and helped him out, and it was cool. And I should have done it. There was a point where everybody had gone outside, so there's only like 6 people in there, and 4 of them were us. So I should have just thrown my bar out, or my phone on the bar at that point, but like, there we go, I did it.
Well, at least you got to pay a tab, and it was for a good cause, I suppose, for somebody doing that. And yeah, I mean, anything else? Anything else from your trips? Like I said, I have more to talk about when I get home. I'll be home in a few days, and then I'll process and I'll talk more about Seoul and Tokyo and any other takeaways, tips, anything else I can think of to help people out. And it's been eye-opening because I was traveling with my buddy who, we'd been to China before, but this was his first time in Korea, first time in Japan. So got to kind of absorb his thoughts on his first time in these places and what he found incredible, what he didn't. And so I can pass on maybe some of that on a future show. So looking forward to talking about that. But yeah, any other takeaways from your trip?
No, I mean, it was just the one night. I flew back on Saturday. It got delayed on American, of course, on the way home, as one does all the time. So got home really late, and Michigan State was playing at 11 p.m. that night Eastern. So I got to watch it a little bit on the plane, which kind of worked out, that they were playing so late. And, we stayed at the Indigo Gas Lamp in downtown San Diego. I think it was like 50,000 IHG points, 45,000, somewhere in there. Really nice hotel, good location. You can see, if you go to their rooftop bar, you can see into the stadium and everything. So definitely a good option. A little bit, Hyatt gets expensive in San Diego. Hilton's a bit more. So I think this was one of the better values if you do have IHG points. So we enjoyed our time there, just kind of hung out. Our buddy Brandon lives downtown San Diego, so he hung out with us and took us to like some of his favorite bars. And then we ended up meeting, there was a pub crawl with people from, like, a guy from France, Germany, uh, Switzerland, Canada, and I think one from somewhere else. And so we ended up talking to them for a bit, a couple young guys, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're just doing this free tour." I was like, "Oh, did you tip the guy?" And they're like, "No, it was free." And I was like, "Okay."
Yeah, that's I mean, you see those. I do free tours all the time in Europe and stuff, and you see it. You see people who freeload. And the reason I know that is we have a pretty, standard thing that we tip, and we try to. It's usually like for the three of us, 20 euros. So I don't know if that's cheap. People are going to probably call me cheap on the internet, but they're always very happy with 20 euros for the three of us, for two adults and a kid, and like overly happy. And that tells me that the vast majority of people aren't tipping even nearly that. But I feel like 5 euros a person is probably good, or $5. I don't know. I mean, if you were to buy one of these tours, like I'm talking about a free walking tour, but if you were to buy something like that, it's going to be significantly more than that. And, if it's a smaller group, I've tipped a lot more. But some of these, they can be 40, 50 people, then I feel like that's a good, fair value, depending on it. But absolutely don't freeload. And I'm just so afraid of the comments I'm going to get for saying I do 5. I should have never admitted how much I do.
That plus chilies. Yeah, you're dead.
Yeah, well, I've been doing this a long time. I don't care. I've eaten a lot of soup dumplings. I've been, I've eaten a lot of great Chinese food, and now I've eaten chilies in China.
Yeah.
And,
There you go.
globalization,
Sometimes you just need
baby.
chips and salsa.
Just absolutely, absolutely. So let us know, all your thoughts on, Shanghai, China. If you've been there recently, how has it changed? Have you been there a lot over the years? I know there's so many people who watch the show that are diverse in their travels, and I'd love to hear your opinions about eating Western food in there. I got some Din Tai Fung in Korea. I'll talk about that next week because it was so cheap compared to Vegas, which is insane, but good stuff. And yeah, thanks so much for listening, watching. Hit us up in the comments, and talk to you guys next week.
I hope you went to a baseball game in South Korea. You better. No?
No.
Oh,
I've been to one in
man.
I fail all over. Went to 3 theme parks though. Bye.
Thank you and enjoy your flight.